Tonight on KGW News, paying the price for being too slow in an emergency.
This was about accountability.
How the county is now punishing an ambulance provider it says has fallen behind. And a big win off the field for the Beavs and the Cougs. How they're taking back the upper hand after the rest of the Pac-12 left them holding the bag. Plus,
it's a fight I will never give up to bring her home.
Vacation turned nightmare. A family struggled to bring their mom home from overseas months after she fell into a coma. Then later, making the most of their downtime.
I like the feeling of helping someone.
The Portland students learning life lessons while out of the classroom. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko. We begin tonight with a man wrongfully convicted of murder now asking the state to pay him for the time he spent behind bars. He is seeking some $2 million to make up for the 30 years he served in prison. Catherine Cook is here with an update on the case of Frank Gable. Catherine.
David, the case goes back to 1991 when Frank Gable was wrongly convicted of murdering the head of Oregon's prison system. The victim's brothers have long believed police got the wrong guy. And now that Gable's a free man, they're still supporting him. In 1989, Michael Franke was chief of Oregon's prison system. That January, he was murdered, stabbed to death outside the Department of Corrections headquarters in Salem. A year later, police arrested a low-level drug dealer named Frank Gable for the crime. But even then, Michael Franke's family believed police got the wrong guy. That includes Franke's brother, Pat.
I knew from the evidence that we had collected anyway and got there that he had done this.
It would take 30 years, but in 2019, a federal judge agreed and ordered Gable to be released from prison. Part of the evidence was the fact that another man's multiple confessions to the killing were excluded from Gable's trial.
There was never any physical evidence that linked him to the scene of the murder. And the story that the state spun was just pure jackassery.
Lauren Bright Pacheco is the podcast producer behind Murder in Oregon. It follows the still unsolved murder of Michael Franke and aired shortly before Gable's conviction was overturned. And the story continues. On Tuesday, Gable's attorney filed a petition. It seeks nearly $2 million from the state of Oregon for the years Gable spent in prison. As part of a wrongful conviction compensation law passed in Oregon in 2021, former inmates can get up to $67,000 for each year spent behind bars. Gable is also seeking just over $100,000 for the 4 years he was on parole.
I wish it could be a lot more. They took 30 years out of his life and subjected him to all kinds of hell.
Pat says Gable can't work due to injuries and is a shell of what he was before prison 30 years ago. A GoFundMe is helping Gable raise money for him and his wife to live on.
I'll help Frank get a lot of money and gets it quickly.
From Lauren's perspective, Gable deserves much more than compensation. To her, this story doesn't end with money. It ends with justice.
His murder was never properly investigated. People in positions of power knowingly put an innocent man in prison for 3 decades, and the state of Oregon is still punching air.
Frank Gable lives in Kansas with his wife now and is doing his best to move on, but he's shared with Pat that he suffers from PTSD and other health issues after everything he went through. David.
Catherine Cook in the newsroom tonight. Thank you, Catherine. I want to get to a significant update now around the future of the Pac-12 with a judge ruling in favor of Oregon State and Washington State. The decision means going forward, OSU and WSU will be the only 2 voting members of the Pac-12. The other 10 schools can attend the meetings, but they will not be able to vote. You'll remember the Beavers and Cougars filed this lawsuit after all the other schools, including the Ducks and Huskies, jumped ship for other conferences. And with millions of dollars at stake, the Beavers and Cougars argued they should be the only ones deciding where those funds go. Now, after the ruling, WSU's president said the schools are ready to move forward.
We still got to work on what our football schedule looks like and what our conference partnership or alignment may look like. And I think over the next week or two, that's got to really be where we focus.
Well, meanwhile, the University of Washington has already indicated that it will appeal that ruling. To another story we have been following closely, and Multnomah County now fining ambulance provider AMR $500,000 over response times it says consistently are not in compliance with its contract. AMR crews are supposed to get to most life-threatening calls in the county within 8 minutes. A county review of data from August found AMR frequently missed that mark.
What we've seen instead is that there's been no improvement in response times. In fact, we are seeing AMR expanding into other counties when they're having issues staffing and serving Multnomah County. For me, this was about accountability.
Well, AMR has blamed the issues on both a nationwide paramedic shortage and the county's strict ambulance staffing requirements. In theory, the county could keep fining AMR each and every month moving forward until it is in compliance. Let's get you caught up on tonight's other headlines now. Police now say a man shot his wife at a home in Oregon City. 37-year-old Anna Wessel was found dead inside a house on Squire Drive around 1 Monday afternoon. Her husband, Anthony Wessel, now faces a second-degree murder charge. Officers say he came to them and admitted to the crime. In southeast Portland, a pedestrian was hit and killed by a car today. This was on McLaughlin Boulevard near Southeast Cora Street. The victim died at the scene. Police say the driver stayed and cooperated with officers. According to PPB, this marks Portland's 61st fatal traffic accident this year. And there is a new push to encourage people to report hate crimes. The FBI put out this ad at Portland International Airport. It's similar displays that have gone up around the country. The FBI says there's been a rise in hate crimes over the past few years. In Oregon, there were 377 reported hate crime victims in 2021, 428 in 2022. Officials say victims perceived as black were targeted most frequently in Oregon. Well, tomorrow will be day 9 of canceled classes for tens of thousands of Portland public school students as the teacher strike stretches into its 3rd week. According to the latest estimates from the district, the union's current proposal would cost them $200 million more than their contract offer. That's after the governor sent the state CFO to help both sides essentially get on the same page. Meanwhile, we talked to some students to find out how they are feeling about missing so much class.
It's nice to have no school, but I feel like I'm just when's school gonna start? I kind of just want it to start now.
I get bored really easily, so it's kind of hard to have this going on. And I also missed a lot of my friends from school.
At first it was fun playing with my friends, but now I can't really play with my friends anymore. It's just nothing to do.
That's got to be tough. Bargaining is ongoing, though the district called today's mediation unproductive. Due to a union leader from another district, they say PAT brought to the bargaining table. The union says it presented an updated proposal that would close the gap, including around class sizes, but add that negotiations will continue tomorrow along with morning pickets. So with no clear end in sight here, some students are finding ways to make positive contributions to their communities when they can't go to class. Blair Best caught up with siblings from Grant High who are helping the homeless.
As Portland teachers fight for change, students make a difference in their own way. Inside the kitchen of Blanchet House,
2 over here,
a popular day center in Old Town for homeless people.
I think it's interesting that there's so many people that come through the doors.
I like the feeling of helping someone and making people happy.
With classes canceled, this brother and sister are left with little to do.
It's kind of boring just staying at home.
Don't really like that I'm doing nothing and I feel like I'm wasting my time.
So they're filling it by filling plates for those in need.
Volunteering at Blanchet House can teach students that people experiencing homelessness are human beings and they're in need of your compassion and help.
I know that it'll make them feel better, and it makes me feel better knowing that they have a bit more security.
During a time when that peace of mind is hard to come by for so many.
Especially when I don't know what I'm gonna be doing. There's nothing occupying my day currently. This is a good way to occupy my day.
Now, Blanchet House is always looking for more volunteers, specifically during lunch when students are typically in school. But they can also volunteer from home by doing things like creating care kits, bagged lunches, and also collecting winter clothing. Blair Best, KGW News.
Yeah, always something to be done. Okay, the moment the strike ends and kids and teens are able to go back to school, we will tell you about it. In the meantime, stick with KGW News and KGW.com. We will be covering the strike for as long as it lasts. You are watching KGW News. Straight ahead at 11 on this Tuesday night. Fighting intensifying between Israel and Hamas, with Israel now firmly focused on Gaza's largest hospital. And why a Vancouver woman who traveled to Portugal in May to celebrate her retirement is still stuck there and in a coma.
I'm Matt Safino. You can see the clouds rolling in today and just totally taking over the top of Mount Hood right there. We call that a cap cloud. Often means there's a change in the weather for the weather is what I'm trying to say here. And you can see the rain falling in Newport. Right now we've had some in Portland, but there are some dry days ahead, and I'll let you know what we can see this weekend.